Speaking of unemployment, finding a job in itself can be a stressful, frustrating, and even depressing process. But what happens when there's a deadly virus outside and the job market becomes more competitive? And more importantly, how do you stay motivated and keep your head above water emotionally? To answer that, we are joined now by Israeli psychologist Dr. Kamila Forkosh Lavan. Thank you so much for being with us now. What are the psychological effects of unemployment and loss of income? Because there's got to be some, less obvious outcomes apart from financially induced stress.
Mm-hmm. So it affects people very, very deeply in many instances, especially if there is already a pre-existing financial difficulty. It could lead to sadness, to feel a sense of loss, sense of feeling trapped, depression. So it's very, difficulty sleeping, aggression. And so it's very, very important to realize that there are real problems that could happen and to kind of keep an eye on that.
All right, and you kind of touched on this, but losing your career, you mentioned in a way that it can also set off maybe like a loss of identity. And there was actually a lot of that reported after the 2008 crash. So how do we make sure that we don't sink into cycles of, self-pity?
So it's very important to understand that something like that already also starts from before. It's very important that you as an individual, yes, develop yourself in different areas and are not as dependent only on your job. So, for example, the more roles you have, the better. Like, if you are a good friend, or if you have hobbies, or if you have different interests, or if you have more than one skill set that that could be marketable, if you don't yet have them, so it would be very good to reach out and to look around, especially during this time, to see what you can maybe study or learn. So what other ways of income would you be able to have so that you're more versatile, and if a loss of a certain job or an income from one job isn't then as stressful. It's also very important to remember that during these stressful times, the stress goes also on the family and on your loved ones. So often we will end up talking to those that are close to us in such ways that we would never even dream to talk to someone, a co-worker or a friend or someone on the street, because there's this automatic assumption that they will be there for us and they will stand it. So a lot of times we end up screaming at them or being very not nice, and it's uncalled for. So it's something that also is very important to kind of look out for.
So quickly, what's one tip that you would want to leave people with, to combat feelings of anxiety, depression, etc.?
I think it's very important to be sensitive to yourself and also to others, and see if you're very frustrated, if you have difficulty sleeping, if you feel like starting to drink or smoke or hide somewhere in substances. To be aware of this, and if necessary, do reach out to a professional, because in the more extreme cases of this, it could even lead to attempt of suicide or murder, on the other hand, of someone that you maybe weren't thinking of, but there's this huge emotional outburst. So be aware, be careful, and understand that this could lead to something serious. So if you see some signs that aren't seeming to you very good, or if you see it in your loved one, do talk about it and do address it.
All right, Dr. Forkosh Lavan, thank you so much for joining us again.